In this excerpt from TraceLink's recent Agile Issue Management webinar, hear how Mike Barga, Senior Director of Global Supplier Quality at Patheon by Thermo Fisher, is building an agile supply chain for the next normal.
Just to start off, I'd like to give a view on supplier quality and how Agile Issue Management is really a foundational element to a successful supplier quality program. And a little bit later, I'll also discuss the benefits or impact that I've observed and others have observed where Agile Issue Management has existed. And really just looking at supplier quality, it's really a collaborative approach utilizing accurate and factual data to proactively and reactively manage our supply base. So it has to be based off of facts and data, not necessarily subjective views on how others or individuals are viewing a supplier. It's all around increasing awareness around the risk profile of the supply base, identifying that risk, understanding what the risk looks like, how do you resolve that risk before you actually engage in purchase orders of materials or services. Ultimately, it's ensuring that we understand performance indicators. What do they look like and how do they drive value across the program? Not simply just a number to be out there, but true indicators that drive the program forward. And ultimately, that helps identify the various cost drivers that are seen within a company. It's also around improving process capabilities and shifting away from the mindset of inspection or inspecting quality into a material or service. But ultimately, it's around how do you control your processes? How do you control those inputs so that you can accurately predict what the output's going to be to help eliminate issues or deviations and things that can occur retroactively. Most importantly, in my opinion, it's truly around a partnership. And that partnership is aimed around timely resolution to issues and deviations. At the end of the day, we can do a lot to minimize the number or the volume of issues or disruptions that occur. But it's about how quickly you respond to them because they're always going to be there. There's always going to be a disruption or a deviation that happens. Okay, so some of the challenges when you think about what an organization could face. So, John, if you could go to the next slide, please, slide 23. It's very similar challenges that I've seen in my career and that others across industry have seen are unclear roles and responsibilities. Who really owns the relationship with the supplier? And what is that role of, for example, procurement versus quality or supply chain, operations versus engineering technical individuals? There's typically a lack of standardized processes within companies and across industry as well. How do you identify and mitigate that sourcing and operational supplier risk that we referred to in the previous slide? There's typically varying views on supply performance. As indicated, if we don't have true performance indicators, then you end up landing in a subjective world where it's all around a view that an individual has in supply performance, which in many times is not accurate. There's typically outdated or missing systems. I'm sure many of you have shared what I've experienced in my career around just a company that has a multitude of ERP systems, not one enterprise-level system. Internal capital management systems or processes as well can be very different than the external capital management systems that are enforced across the industry and across the companies. And as we've talked about, scorecard, metrics, and data feeds. Are they outdated? Are they consistent? And how easily can we get our hands on the data? And multiple approaches to deviation management, right? Is as you think about a supply base, is it a group? Is it a division? Is it various sites within a company? And what are their various views on the deviation management process, especially when you think about suppliers? Is it standardized? Or are there various views of how a complaint or a deviation, for example, is communicated externally and internally? Standardizing that approach becomes extremely important. So the next slide, if you look at just some of the questions that naturally come out of the challenges are, where do we start? If we're looking at putting in this truly risk-based program that's looking at deviations as well, where do you start? How do you drive that immediate impact and value? Where do you increase collaboration? And how about inventory management? Where do you drive the improvement? How do you get more cost conscious and reduce potential expenses? And in my opinion, as you click through the next slide, one of the foundational elements is Agile Issue Management. This is a core area that can be set up without looking at the overall supplier quality program. This is an area that you can set up immediately and drive significant impact. And some areas on the next slide that we've seen impact, as I mentioned previously, Below are the examples of the benefits or impact that can be observed where Agile issue management has been utilized. Such results have been seen not just by myself, but across the industry where Agile issue management has been utilized. And it really is around how do you drive down disruptions within manufacturing and keep our operations up and running. The more that they're running, the more value that is driving for the company. How do you drive overall reductions in defects and drive increased quality across the products or services that are being procured? And as we've talked through collaboration, how do we really respond more timely, more effectively to complaints or deviations when they occur? And that collaboration was within a company or a client and their supply base. And ultimately that starts to drive better capital implementation, eliminating the reoccurring deviations that are seen. It obviously also improves delivery performance because there's less hiccups. So the consistency of the delivery becomes more stable. And ultimately is what I've seen in others are you can impact hundreds of millions of dollars on an annual basis around cost avoidance. And that avoidance can be through raw material replacement cost. It could be through finished product replacement cost as well. And ultimately impacting the revenue that a business or a company could experience. So ultimately, a lot of these drive increased collaboration and new product development. As we talked earlier, it's around also shifting the mindset from when we have issues and we're driving these improvements through the Agile issue management system, you can then become more collaborative in your product development and sourcing activities to help eliminate the ability of experiencing these types of issues repetitively over a different product or different service. And increasing that communication from suppliers with the mindset of how do we start to shift to more that proactive reporting of manufacturing issues that a supplier could experience, as opposed to seeing it at the customer client site within their operations or even in their receiving inspection areas. How do we then actually identify those in the supplier's hand and even get further ahead of when those issues and deviations occur? So as you can see here, lots of impact and immediate value. That value helps drive that overall supplier quality program. So the Agile issue management system is absolutely foundational to many programs that are out there today.